for your families. These coyotes are coordinating with terrorist organizations, collecting money from them to bring families and unaccompanied children into our country. These operations are getting people killed. Let me be clear. If you smuggle human beings, you will be found, you will be prosecuted, and you will be brought to justice. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what our borders are. The limit of where our country ends and another begins, but it does not limit our law enforcement capabilities to bring you to the United States and prosecute you and lock you up for as long as we can. Thank you, and God bless you.
We just want to take a few minutes of more of your time and give you a little bit more detailed flavor of the cases that we have before you and the nature and extent of the horrific crimes that are taking place that General Bondi just outlined. After we finish these very brief comments, it will be open for questions at that point. And just bear with us, and we'll be there very soon. The first case that we're talking about is the case here in Tampa that General Bondi was talking about, United States versus Cabrera, which is 12 defendants, an international alien smuggling ring, and they also engaged in asylum fraud. And why did they do it? They did it for money and money alone. As General Bondi just noted, we have tracked at least $18 million trafficking through their account and laundered through their accounts to pay their expenses, to pay their co-conspirators. This was a profit-making motive that's going on between 2021 and today, 2025. How did it happen? They used social media. They went on social media with Cuban individuals to tell them that they could get Cuban individuals and get them visas based on fraudulent conduct by putting their visas, which were based on European citizenship. They had co-conspirators throughout the world to gather these people up to try to get their money to participate in this. And I say kill co-conspirators. There are numerous co-conspirators. There were thousands of people, aliens listed in their ledgers that they were doing this with. Their ledgers were sophisticated as any business that you will come across. Their ledgers had dates of travel, money owed, airlines used, smuggling routes. How did they do it? They brought these people through charters and commercial airlines through other countries. They put the fraudulent documentation together with these individuals. Of course, as General Bondi just noted, at $40,000 apiece. They spent up millions of dollars flying these people throughout the country before they came back into the United States. They would provide them with fraudulent visas based on the fact that they were saying that they were not in Cuba after 2011, when of course they were. With this fraudulent document, they coached these people once they came to enter into the United States. How did they coach them? They coached them to make sure you tell these people that you're a tourist. Make sure you tell them that you're just here for a visit. And of course, conceal the fact that you had come from Cuba. And then after and when you get into the United States, lay low for a while. Don't make any noise about things. Why? Because at the appropriate time, they wanted you to come forward to seek asylum, being a Cuban national. So they would then prepare the asylum applications, which were likewise fraudulent. So they're preparing fraudulent documents to get into the country, preparing fraudulent documentation to get asylum. And ladies and gentlemen, this was all for money. And it was a sophisticated enterprise with multiple shell corporations being used and transferring money throughout the country. We have uncovered at least 27 known bank accounts with these people to transfer their money between and among each other, pay for expenses and people overseas, and using money to move in and out of their shell corporations to hide it, which is the substance of the money laundering charge. Suffice it to say, the bottom line of this is that it was a business, a criminal business that was set up for one reason and one reason only: to make money on the backs of these people and at the expense of the American people by defrauding them. And in doing so, they passed at least $18 million through their bank accounts. That's a brief overview of the Tampa case. Obviously, it is now open for open for review because it's no longer sealed. And I want to, if I can, I want to turn this over to my friend from the Southern District of Texas, Nick Ganji, who will give you an idea of the case that he is going to present from his district. Nick?
Madam Attorney General.
And that was
Good
Attorney
afternoon. My
General
name is
Pam
Nicholas Gaines.
Bondi and other Florida officials talking about transnational gangs and the impact it has had on the United States, talking about how the organization's main motive is to make money at the expense of Americans, and Bondi talking about ramping up efforts to combat these organizations. Coming up, the president of Northwestern University announces his resignation. A White House spokesperson says the Trump administration looks forward to working with the new leadership at the university. The city of Washington filed a lawsuit today accusing the Trump administration of interfering in domestic affairs. The suit seems to conflict with the mayor's recent order for local coordination with the president. That and more after the break.
Cartels. Before, the standard procedure was to intercept drug vessels, seize the drugs, and then make an arrest. But Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that wasn't working. So now they're implementing more forceful measures. Watch.
Interdiction doesn't work because these drug cartels, what they do is they know they're going to lose, 2% of their cargo. They bake it into their economics. What will stop them is when you blow them up, when you get rid of them. And it'll happen again.
Now, designating gangs as terrorist organizations allows authorities to freeze their assets in the U.S. and also share intelligence from the U.S. to other governments so that they can take out those gangs themselves. Secretary Rubio made the announcement while meeting with officials in Ecuador who are themselves calling these gangs terrorists. Look.
But this time, we're not just going to hunt for drug dealers with the little fast boats and say, let's try to arrest them. No, the president has said he wants to wage war on these groups because they've been waging war on us for 30 years and no one has responded.
The goals that President Noboa stated for his government are very similar to those that President Trump has. We're seeking to fight organized transnational crime, terrorism.
The U.S. is providing the country of Ecuador with $13.5 million to combat drugs and crime and another $6 million for military drones. Ecuador is a staunch ally to the U.S. President Noboa even postponed his trip to Vietnam to meet with Rubio. Ecuador authorities extradited the leader of Los Choneros, one of the now designated terrorist organizations, to the U.S. to face criminal charges back in July. And last week, the Trump administration issued a life sentence to El Mayo, the head of the largest cartel in Mexico, Sinaloa. Take a look.
His guilty plea brings us one step closer to achieving our goal of elimination of the drug cartels and the transnational criminal organizations throughout this world that are flooding our country with drugs, human traffickers, and homicides.
The Trump administration still has Navy warships dispatched to the Caribbean to combat drug trafficking to the U.S. And U.S. Attorney of D.C., Janine Pirro, said yesterday that her office seized over 700,000 pounds of meth precursor chemicals from China heading to Mexico's Sinaloa cartel. And on the same day, FBI Director Kash Patel announced Operation Box Cutter, which he said seized enough fentanyl to kill around 350,000 Americans. Don?
Okay, Jack, thank you for the report. In Germany, an espionage trial.
Caribbean. As you can see from the video, there's a boat that's traveling on the sea. Suddenly, a flash of white light. That is the alleged strike. It hits the boat. It's seen catching fire. Smoke erupts. And now the administration has announced this is just the beginning. This is Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth discussing the recent strikes at Fox and Friends. Watch.
The president put that video of him eviscerating, blowing up that boat coming across with all of the drugs on board. And the president said on social, on Truth Social, let them be on notice to anybody bringing drugs to the U.S. Beware. So the president is sending a message to other cartels, right?
A very clear one. I can tell you that was definitely not artificial intelligence. I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing, and we knew exactly who they represented. And that was Tren de Aragua, a narco-terrorist organization designated by the United States, trying to poison our country with illicit drugs. Last year, under the Biden administration, all 4 years, 100,000 Americans died from drug-related from drugs, from the
Yep.
use of drugs, many
He
of which
opened the
poured in
door.
from Central and South America through our southwest border. Now, we're sealing the border, but President Trump is willing to go on offense in ways that others have not been. And to send that clear signal to Tren de Aragua, Cartel del Sols, and others emanating from Venezuela, we're not going to allow this kind of activity. You're poisoning our people. We've got incredible assets, and they are gathering in the region. And so you want to try to traffic drugs? It's a new day. It's a different day. And so those 11 drug traffickers are no longer with us, sending a very clear signal that this is an activity the United States is not going to tolerate in our hemisphere.
Now, this is interesting. Basically, what Hegseth is saying, the Pentagon, the Defense Department, they knew who was on the boat. They knew who these people were. They knew who they represented, meaning they knew which gang they were with. And they also knew other information on these individuals. Now, to me, what does that say? It suggests that U.S. military intelligence is engaged in these operations. And they know that these individuals are with what gang. They know the drug trades happen. They know when they're trafficking things. In other words, they know they're being watched. And interestingly as well, they published a video and then announced it publicly. They want this to be known. Importantly as well, the Tren de Aragua gang members were traveling to Venezuela and were moving back, trafficking drugs from there, suggesting as well that the military is watching Venezuelan cartel operations. And that's important also because who's leading the cartel in Venezuela? Allegedly Nicolas Maduro, according to the Trump administration, although he denies it. Now, President Donald Trump also discussed a strike, and also what comes next. This is during a presser on Tuesday.
And there's more where that comes from. We have a lot of drugs pouring into our country, coming in for a long time. And we just, these came out of Venezuela and coming out very heavily from Venezuela. A lot of things are coming out of Venezuela. So we took it out, and you'll get to see that after this meeting is over.
Now, as all this is going on, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he's holding meetings in Latin America. Specifically, he's speaking with the governments of Mexico and Ecuador about their, again, leaders working with the United States to end illegal immigration and also about the emerging war on the drug cartels. Now, what's my personal take? Nothing that has been done to stop the cartels so far has worked. They've tried doing law enforcement, doesn't work. They buy off the judges, they buy off the police, they buy off the sheriffs. This has happened all around Latin America. There have been cases where like the heads, like the local police chief is working for the cartels. It doesn't work. The countries are too corrupt. Corruption has found its way into the bloodstream of most of Latin America. They are so utterly corrupt they can't have law and order. Nothing has worked on law enforcement. They've been trying it for decades. It does not work. The other option is put them in jail. What happens if you put a cartel member in jail? Well, they build prison gangs, and sometimes they even run the operations of the cartels out of the prisons. Then they buy off the guards and basically live like kings in the prisons. It does not work, or their cartels bail them out, and nothing's done against it unless the United States steps in. Just like any other major business, also what happens when you have a cartel leader arrested, they appoint a new CEO, quote unquote, right? They find a new leader because these are major businesses. These are multi-billion-dollar businesses, and they operate just like that. The only difference being they kill people in the open. Now, the roots of the cartel, they're very deep in a lot of Latin America. In the United States, we often talk about the Mexican drug cartels. It's not just Mexico. It's most of Latin America. Drug cartels have effectively destabilized most of the government. To the extent that even if a government official is trying to run for office and saying we're going to do something about it, the cartels kill that person. You've had assassination attempts against many, many officials trying to come up throughout Latin America. And oftentimes the cartels even succeed in those killings. It's to the extent that, again, the U.S. government is even accusing the leaders, the presidents of some countries, of being also the leaders of cartels. Remember, Biden administration designation says the president of Venezuela is the leader of the cartel of the Suns. How do you have a president of a country also being the leader of a drug cartel? Unfortunately, that's the nature of it. When a cartel finds its way into government, when it's allowed to operate for too long, it begins to control the entire country. And the United States, as it's moving in now, treating the cartels as terrorists, meaning the United States will kill them. That brings up a lot of concerns around what it means for these countries because, well, what does it mean if you fight a terrorist group? It means you get videos like the one we just watched. They bomb them from the sky. What does it mean when an entire country is controlled by a terrorist group? It means we go to war with them. So we'll see what happens with this. Currently, the United States is looking to stop these operations. Currently, the United States is taking other means to achieve this. We'll see where it goes as they hold talks with the leaders of various countries. On that front, President Donald Trump had given a threat very early on, and this was interesting. Donald Trump effectively acknowledged, we know the governments of many countries in Latin America are run by the cartels. We know many of you are corrupt. We know a lot of you are bought off. We know a lot of you work with the cartels. Trump effectively stated this openly. And what he said was this: we're going to kill the cartels. We're going to go after them, effectively. And if any government in Latin America tries to stop it, the U.S. government will expose the officials who are doing that and their ties to the cartel, which is an interesting way of handling it. Trump was discussing this while he was still on the campaign trail. Effectively, what he said is, we know you're corrupt. We're not going to talk about it unless you try to stop us. If they try to stop the United States from going after the cartels, the United States will expose the officials who are doing that, and then we'll see what happens to those officials, again, as the United States is killing the cartels in these countries. Very big deal, by the way. On that point also, the United States, again, they're talking about waging war within Latin America. They're currently talking about this. They're currently talking about waging war in Mexico against the cartels. The Mexican government is desperately trying to stop this from happening. It is known that many officials in the Mexican government are basically with the cartels. We'll see if Trump exposes that and puts his money where his mouth is, because he was saying he was going to do it. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. The other big thing happening now is the U.S. government is also working with the government of Panama to do law enforcement in Haiti. And they're talking about deploying, again, forces to Haiti to put down the gang members there, which are effectively trying to take over the entire country, which also caused mass illegal immigration to the United States. They're talking about putting the gang members back in jail. So we'll see where this goes. In other words, the United States is becoming much more involved in Latin America, something that has not happened for a very long time.
Yeah,
Now, in
since
other
the
news,
50s.
Florida is officially ending all vaccine mandates from its state law. This is not just the COVID vaccine. This is all vaccine mandates.